My sister asked me to be her maid of honor. I was so excited. We'd been close our whole lives. During the ceremony, she leaned over and whispered, "Look at your bouquet." I looked down and my blood ran cold. Hidden between the roses was something that changed everything. I dropped the flowers and walked out. The wedding was ruined. But what I found saved my life. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand why this felt like such a betrayal. Sophia and I had always been different, but in a way that worked. She was the dreamer, I was the planner. She painted watercolors and wrote poetry. I balanced checkbooks and remembered birthdays. When she decided to marry Marcus after knowing him for 8 months, I was the one who helped her find the venue, coordinate with vendors, and manage the guest list. I didn't question it because Sophia had always been impulsive, and Marcus seemed steady enough to ground her. Their relationship moved fast. Too fast, maybe, but Sophia was radiant. She'd call me at midnight, giggling about wedding dress shopping or honeymoon plans. For the first time in years, we talked every day. She needed me, and I loved being needed by her again. "Will you be my maid of honor?" she asked over lunch 3 months before the wedding. We were at this little cafe she loved, the one with mismatched chairs and terrible coffee that somehow tasted perfect when you were with the right person. "Obviously," I said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "I've been waiting for you to ask." She grinned. "I have so many ideas. I want you to wear emerald green. It'll look gorgeous with your skin tone. And I found this florist who does the most incredible bouquets. You're going to love yours." I should have paid more attention to that last part. The next few months were a whirlwind of dress fittings, bridal showers, and bachelorette party planning. Sophia was stressed but happy, and I threw myself into making everything perfect for her. I coordinated with the other bridesmaids, handled the seating chart drama when Great Aunt Helen refused to sit near Uncle Pete, and even talked Sophia down from 3 separate panic attacks about centerpieces. But there were weird moments. Little things that didn't quite add up. Like when I offered to help address invitations, and Sophia insisted on doing them herself. "It's therapeutic," she said, but she seemed nervous about it, protective of the guest list in a way that felt odd. Or when I suggested we all get matching jewelry for the wedding party, and she quickly shut it down. "I already ordered something special for everyone," she said. "Trust me, you'll love it." And then there was Marcus. Don't get me wrong, he was polite, charming even. But he had this way of looking at me that made my skin crawl. Not obviously inappropriate, just intense. Like he was studying me. When I mentioned it to Sophia, she laughed it off. "He's just shy around new people. Give him time." I gave him time. 6 months of time. He never got less weird. The week before the wedding, Sophia seemed different. Jumpy. She kept checking her phone and would go quiet mid-conversation, like she was somewhere else entirely. When I asked if she was having second thoughts, she snapped at me. "Why would you say that? Everything's perfect. Marcus is perfect. This wedding is going to be perfect." The rehearsal dinner was Friday night. Sophia seemed more relaxed, laughing and toasting with champagne. Marcus gave a speech about how lucky he was to find his soulmate, how Sophia completed him in ways he never thought possible. It was sweet, if a little intense. Sophia beamed. After dinner, she pulled me aside. "Tomorrow's going to be amazing," she said, hugging me tight. "I can't wait for you to see your bouquet. I picked it out specially for you." I hugged her back, inhaling the familiar scent of her perfume. Something floral and light that she'd worn since high school. "I love you, Soph." "I love you too," she whispered. "More than you know." That should have been my first real warning. The morning of the wedding was chaos in the best possible way. Hair, makeup, mimosas, nervous laughter. Sophia was radiant in her dress, a flowing, bohemian style that suited her perfectly. I was in emerald green, as promised, and felt beautiful for the first time in months. The florist arrived with the bouquets while we were putting finishing touches on makeup. Mine was stunning. White roses, baby's breath, and eucalyptus tied with emerald ribbon. It was heavier than I expected, but gorgeous. "Sophia, this is incredible," I said, lifting it to smell the roses. "Thank you." She was watching me in the mirror, her reflection smiling, but her eyes strange. "You're welcome. Just don't look too closely until the ceremony, okay? I want it to be a surprise." I laughed. What kind of surprise could be in a bouquet? "You'll see." The ceremony was held in Sophia's favorite park, under an arch covered in white flowers. It was intimate, maybe 50 people, and absolutely perfect. I stood next to Sophia as Marcus waited at the altar, looking handsome in his navy suit. Everything proceeded normally. The music, the processional, Sophia walking down the aisle on our father's arm looking like something out of a fairy tale. I was so focused on not crying that I barely noticed Marcus's expression when he saw her. It wasn't joy exactly. It was something else. Something hungry. The officiant began the ceremony. I held my bouquet and tried to focus on being present for this moment, this celebration of my sister's happiness. But something felt off. The bouquet was definitely heavier than it should be, and there was a strange texture among the stems that I couldn't identify. When it came time for the exchange of rings, Sophia turned to me for her bouquet, so her hands would be free. As she took it, she leaned close and whispered, "Look at your bouquet. Really look." I glanced down, expecting to see some sweet detail I'd missed. Maybe a photo of our grandmother tucked among the flowers, or a meaningful charm attached to the ribbon. Instead, my blood ran cold. There, wrapped carefully among the stems and hidden by the full blooms, was a small recording device. Digital, professional grade, the kind that could capture hours of audio. And attached to it was a tiny note in Sophia's handwriting. "He's been recording our conversations. All of them. Check your apartment." My hands started shaking. I looked up at Sophia, who was smiling serenely at Marcus as he slipped the ring onto her finger, but her eyes kept darting to me. She knew I'd found it. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Marcus's intense stares. His questions about my work, my schedule, my relationships. The way he always seemed to know things about me that I'd only told Sophia. Sophia's recent jumpiness, her protectiveness about wedding planning, her insistence on doing everything herself. She hadn't been planning a wedding. She'd been planning an escape. I thought about my apartment, about all the times Marcus had been there. All the times he'd offered to help with things, to fix my leaky faucet or move furniture. All the opportunities he'd had to plant devices, to invade my privacy in ways I was only beginning to understand. The officiant was saying something about love and commitment, but all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, and saw him for what he was. Not Sophia's loving fiancé, but a predator who had been using her to get close to me. I thought about Sophia's phone calls over the past months, always asking about my dating life, my work situation, my daily routines. I'd thought she was just being a caring sister. But she'd been gathering intelligence, feeding it back to him, maybe not even realizing what she was doing at first. But she'd figured it out. That's why she was marrying him. Not because she loved him, but because it was the only way to get close enough to gather evidence. The only way to protect me. The recording device in my bouquet wasn't just proof of what he'd been doing. It was proof of what he'd been planning. "Do you, Marcus, take Sophia to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the officiant asked. "I do," Marcus said, but he was looking at me. That's when I dropped the bouquet. The flowers scattered across the ground, and the recording device bounced once before landing in the grass. A few people gasped. Sophia's eyes went wide. "I'm sorry," I said loudly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I can't do this." I turned and walked away from the altar, away from the confused murmurs of the guests, away from Marcus's shocked face and Sophia's desperate expression. I didn't stop walking until I reached my car. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from Sophia. "Go to your apartment now. Check behind your bedroom mirror and under your kitchen sink. I've been documenting everything for months. The police are already involved. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner." He was watching too closely. I drove home with shaking hands and found exactly what she'd warned me about. Recording devices, tiny cameras, evidence that Marcus had been surveilling me for over a year. My private conversations, my daily routines, my most intimate moments. All of it captured and cataloged by someone I'd trusted in my home. But I also found something else. A USB drive taped under my bathroom cabinet, labeled insurance, in Sophia's handwriting. It contained months of recorded conversations between Marcus and his friends, planning what they called the long game. I wasn't his first victim. I was just the latest. The wedding was indeed ruined. But Sophia had never intended for it to be real. She'd spent months gathering evidence, building a case, protecting me in the only way she could think of, by getting close to the danger. Marcus was arrested 3 days later. The charges included stalking, illegal surveillance, and conspiracy. The USB drive contained evidence linking him to similar crimes against at least 4 other women. Sophia called me that night. "I'm sorry," she said, crying. "I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you." But he was always listening, always watching. The only way to catch him was to make him think he was winning. "You sacrificed your wedding to save me. I said. It wasn't a real wedding, she said. I never filed the paperwork. I never intended to actually marry him. I just needed him to think I would, needed him to get careless enough to leave evidence I could find. She'd been working with a detective for months, documenting everything, building an airtight case. The bouquet was her way of finally letting me know, of giving me the proof I needed to understand what had been happening. How did you figure it out? I asked. He kept asking questions about you that seemed innocent at first. But then he started knowing things I'd never told him. And I found some of his equipment in his apartment. That's when I knew I had to do something. Sophia moved back home after that. She's seeing a therapist, dealing with the trauma of spending months pretending to love someone she knew was dangerous. We're closer now than we've ever been, bonded by the knowledge that she risked everything to protect me. Marcus is serving 5 years. It's not enough, but it's something. And I learned that sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who will walk through fire to keep you safe, even when you don't know you need saving. The bouquet was supposed to be beautiful, and in a way, it was. It was the most beautiful warning I've ever received.